Sparta was once the model of military strength and discipline. It ruled ancient Greece and was feared by its enemies and praised by historians. As with all empires, Sparta's fall from greatness was just as dramatic as its rise to power. Join us as we look at how Sparta's strengths, like its unmatched military power and strict social order, turned into its weaknesses and caused it to fall. People will always remember the famous Greek city-state of Sparta for its unmatched military power and a way of life that was all about fighting. For many years, Sparta was much stronger than its neighbors. This was during a time when troops' strength and strategy were very important for winning battles. Its military concentration and tight oligarchic structure, which were once its biggest strengths, brought it down in the end. Sparta's slow but inevitable fall from power began when it refused to change its strict and isolated society to fit the new conditions of the battlefield. During the classical period, many powerful city-states in ancient Greece fought over who would run the theater. Sparta stood out because it had a strong army and a great plan for how to use it. Sparta was a city-state in the Peloponnesus that was built in the green valley of the Eurotas River. It was known as the greatest military power of its time. It is said that the famous Spartan hoplite and its unbeaten army raised the bar for military power in ancient times. The social order of Sparta, on the other hand, had the makings of a bad society long before it fell apart. The authoritarian government of the city-state controlled every area of life in Sparta. This made for a harsh social order that slowed the growth of the city. The helots were at the bottom of this system. They were slaves and serfs who were controlled by the state and had no rights. The perioeci lived in the middle. They were free, non-Spartan people who traded and made things but didn't have much power over the situation. The Spartiates, who were pure-blooded Spartans, had the most power in politics and the law. This rigid social pyramid sped up Sparta's fall, which happened slowly but surely. It made it harder for the city to change and adapt, and it stopped its people from growing. Sparta was the city-state most dedicated to war in ancient Greece. It was the model of military power. All Spartan boys had to go through the ⴎ a tough program that turned young men into unbeatable fighters. The goal of this method was to make Spartans fearsome fighters. By focusing on strength, self-control, and fighting skills, their foes were afraid of them just seeing a Spartan phalanx because of how well known they were. By 650 BC, Sparta's military power was undeniable. This was the case thanks to the city-state's strategic smarts, the famous Battle of Thermopylae, and the Second Messenian War. During the Peloponnesian War, 431–404 BC, Sparta and Athens fought each other. This was a turning point in Greek history. As the winner of the Peloponnesian League, Sparta showed how smart it was at planning its attacks when it faced Athens's powerful navy. 𝙎ᴜᴜ was crushed by Sparta and the Persians after the Athenians lost in Sicily, which changed the course of the fight. This victory, which took Spartan power beyond Greek and Persian lands, was the pinnacle of their power. But it was too late. The bad things had already begun. The next war, the Corinthian War, pitted a group of Greek city-states against a coalition backed by Persia. The result was a peace deal that made Sparta less powerful. The decisive loss happened at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where Epaminondas, the leader of the Thebes, used clever tactics to wipe out the Spartan army. After this loss, the myth that the Spartans were unbeatable began to fall apart, breaking it. Sparta's social structure was based on a tight hierarchy and a conservative, shy mindset. These traits led to the city-state's fall. The social structure that restricted citizenship and slowed growth was made up of slave helots, middle-class perioeci, and wealthy Spartiates. Because Sparta was closed off and didn't want to use new military strategies, it wasn't ready for how old wars changed over time. It got less important over the years, and by the end, Sparta was just a shadow of what it used to be. The city-state that used to be very proud of its military strength, sense of civic duty, and strict rules is now a warning tale about what can happen when you are set in your ways and don't want to change. The account of Sparta's demise illustrates society's inherent flaws. The entire foundation of this warrior state, known for its military prowess, disintegrated. The city-state's dominance was maintained by a tiny group of pure-blooded Spartans who enslaved the surrounding Helot population. Sparta's downfall, however, was due to its reliance on an oppressed class for economic survival and military dominance. A sad example of Sparta's principles' self-destructive strength, the city-state crumbled under the weight of its rigid culture, which could not support its army. Over time, Sparta's notoriety faded, but her hard work and determination went on. Their failure to join the Pan-Hellenic League that Philip of Macedon set up showed how stubborn they were. They said no because they had a lot of faith in Sparta's freedom and greatness. However, the Romans took over Greece in 146 BC, ending the Spartans' freedom. This was the start of their real decline. Sparta had turned into ruins by the Middle Ages and was almost entirely empty. Sparta's fall shows what can go wrong with a society that was built on war and oppression. It stresses that a state will eventually fall apart if its economic and military power is kept up by controlling its majority of people. Sparta is an example of an old city-state that shows how, even if society has strong armies, it can fall apart if it doesn't change and adapt. Because Sparta was so set on following old ideas, it ended up in darkness and ruin instead of eternal glory. So that is all the time we had today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon on your way out. See you all next time.